Colors, Suzanne, here. Studio here.
Oh, no, we had a intense workshop.
Well, that
in
workshop.
February.
But I'm still a very learning steps about
It takes a long time to get it in your bones, you know. And also, like Suzanne said, to know your own relationship with color, and like you said, the patience to stop and mix it. So one of the things that I just want to say that you're after making the best painting you can. So if you kind of say, well, that's good enough, in a way, you know, that's telling yourself, I'm not doing the best I can. So it's interesting, huh? What we do with color. So.
I'm Suzanne. This is my first time here. So
Another Suzanne.
yeah. And color to me is more of a emotional expression, and I think I tend to use the same colors over and over. I like teal, orange, you know, like I'm always going to those. So I would like to learn more about branching out and mixing and all that.
Great. Okay.
Hi, Suzanne. I'm Elizabeth. I'm an interior designer by trade or by training. So I'm really comfortable with color, but I'm really rusty at mixing. And so lately I've been working at home about I'm matching and understanding how to get the color that I'm trying to get, and I'm out of practice. So it's a great opportunity to reset and brush up on that.
Great. Great.
And my name is Diana. My relationship with color actually goes back a long way because I have a printing background for color printing. So intellectually, I think I understand the mixing and how all that works with primary colors, and you get everything else just using those primary colors. But I don't think I've paid enough attention to the emotional reaction to color. I've experienced it in looking at other people's work, but I haven't thought about it enough, I suppose. You know, I haven't really looked at that internally. So I do, I also like what Sarah was saying about it interrupts the flow, and I find that as well, but I'm thinking in my process, it would probably be easier to do the palette beforehand to kind of help with that, because trying to mix colors on the fly that work is for me anyway very difficult, and I need practice anyway. So yeah.
You know, something you said, intellectually we know, but when we look at a painting, every painting, if it has color, it's going to evoke some kind of emotion. Maybe the issue is that we're not stopping and really looking and seeing what it's saying to us. Mm-hmm. Because once we do that, we'll see the value of color and then want to have more of that in our own work, because we get a lot from color. It seems in modern day art, a lot of times we work with neutral colors, or very limited, like red and black and yellow. And that's because I think they're trying to communicate on a different level rather than on emotional, because color is emotional. And I think it would be great if we got more of that sensual and more feeling into our work, because who we're speaking to, you know, visually, that's going to impact them. So I like this idea that we start to get more attuned to what color is doing to us, you know, as we look. And so, thanks.
Hi, Suzanne. It's Candace. And this is my third month with Suzanne. Relationship with color. Well, I love color. I would say it's a love affair. That's what I would say. And for me, it's a language of emotion. So it's, and I'd like to learn more, actually more intellectually. about color. It's like I feel, I express that way, but I would like to learn more about, I don't know if I want to use the word controlling, but
Well, maybe how to use it in composition.
how to use it in composition, how to translate my intention and feeling rather than just letting it happen.
Right.
Have some, how that works. So,
Right, to get more clarity in our expression.
yes.
Do you want to share? Candace brought a piece that she had started in class, and she finished it and framed it. And to speak of emotion, I think it's really important because this wasn't a very emotional thing for her.
Okay, camera. Here's for you all.
Oh, boy, oh, boy, oh.
And so, Suzanne, let's see, how do I,
That's good.
is that good?
Yeah, that's good.
So I started it in class, and then it was one of those,
That's so you can talk.
okay, it was one of those great classes where I had lots of orange paint and I took it with me. And so it was after I painted it, it felt really good. I loved it when I was done. I knew when I was done. And so it was afterwards that for me, and really only just in the past week that I really got it, that it's about the fire. And so, and my house burning down. And so and there's a lot of emotion with that. And it's not, you know, it doesn't have the label of tragic for me. It's really the fire that changed my life. And so that's, you know, all encompassing because it's been incredible. You know, I mean, there's that thing of it couldn't happen any other way in my life. That's how it is for me
It's interesting. She's trying to get emotion with color and, you know, her experience down without being objective, you know, having an objective house on fire. You know, this is an emotional experience. And so I think, you know, just stopping and looking at that and feeling what red does to us, you know, what the value of red and what the cacophony is going on in there of, you know, shapes and interweaving of blue, which really is water, you know, kind of tells you some of her psychological things are morphing.
It's been a
So,
morphing. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
So, that's kind of a powerful emotion. Yeah.
Speaking words,
Yeah.
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 intensity.
They actually have an art thing they're going to do at I think it's at Finley Hall for the whole community to enter artwork about the fire. So I thought I would
Absolutely.
submit it just because it would
Yeah.
be one
Yeah.
to do.
Let me know. I did a piece on the fire too.
Okay.
Since my studio was evacuated in the fire at the time. The studio I had.
Thanks for bringing that.
Yeah.
You couldn't have said that any other way, except with red.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm glad that we're all introduced to each other. So what I'm going to do is just since we have new people, I'm going to do the lay of the land. What we generally do is talk about the topic that is for the week and for the whole month. The whole month is color. It's actually the second layer of color. The basics we did last time, and we're going to do a review of basics so you guys can catch up and get a feel for what we did accomplish. And then we're going to go on and we're going to look at how color can make our paintings more dynamic, you know, more emotive, more clear, more compositionally strong with color. So that's kind of what we're about this month. And today we're going to do a review. As I say, we're going to look at the color, and I will do a slideshow. So we talk about the topic, and then we have a slideshow, and then we do warm-up exercises, and then some exercises on the topic, and then we have free painting time. so we can explore whatever we want. But there's usually a thought that we're trying to learn about color or about something. So we do it through exercises. And then we loosen up and go do our own thing. Okay, so today I'm just going to get right into the slideshow because it's a review and it'll help you guys. So be sure and ask questions. Let me get my glasses. Okay, this is our beloved color wheel, and it's the simplest way you can look at the color wheel. It has and I will go to the next one because it shows the warm colors. This is the properties of color are saturation and value and hue. Hue is the actual name of the color, and each color is a range of colors. Like a red is a cool red and a warm red all in one. There's no one thing that is red. There's lots of things that are red. It's a range of color. And the warm colors are all on one side of the color wheel, and the cool colors are all on the other side. And they're nice to work together because they have different effects on us emotionally. You know, the warm, like she had in her fire, the warm and then the cool water, the cool blue. So it tempers the other, and it can create harmony and also excitement and contrast. Again, that's the color wheel, and then I'm going to flip the next one to show you the values of each of these hues. These are saturated hues. That means they're full strength. That's what saturation means, is how much of that hue is in that particular color. So when I say that's the hue and they're saturated, now let's look at the value of them. Are they light or are they dark? And there's what the color wheel is, taken away the color, the hue, but it's left you with the value. And the value is on a grayscale. So it shows you that the yellow is the brightest. And down here, this is blue-purple. That's the darkest. And then these are on either side are the next lightest. And then we have a whole bunch, you know, in the dark range on our color wheel. So those are very important to get to know. And we did a lot of work around these kind of things last time. This is a little tool called the value finder, and you can get them. So you can always measure what value your color is. So you can play with this today. And that tells you whether it's a high key, which is on the white this side, or low key. So the white to black goes from high to low. Again, just another way of looking at that. And sometimes what they do is this range, this light range, they'll lump together and call it a high value. And then this is the middle. They'll lump all the middles together and call it middle. And then the darks they'll call dark. So you hear only 3 levels sometimes. And when we mix color, we only usually use 3 levels, because otherwise it'd be too crazy, too much. So here's how you mix a tint. You take your pure hue and you add white, and that gives you a tint. And you can get tints, depending on how much white you get a ton of tints. And the more white you put in it, the less you have of that hue. So the less saturated it is. So if you start with, say, a red, you add white, you get a pink, but now that red isn't very intense. It's less saturated. It's still the red hue, but it's got tint of it. Now, when you add gray, which is black and white, you start with red, and you're going to get what they call a tone. These are very important key words that we've been using because we discuss color in terms of tint, tone, and shade. when we're doing painting. You know, like, oh, I need a little more of the tint in here. I need it higher. I need it lighter, so I need a tint. Or I need it darker, so I need a shade. But black and white with the hue makes a tone, and again, you lose saturation. Every time you add something to your pure hue, you're losing saturation. You still may be the same hue, but it's losing saturation. So black gives you a shade. Can you guys see that? This is another way. Okay. Any questions so far? All right. So this was just an example of how we worked in class. We took, you know, the color, add a little white, and came out with two different kinds of whites. Add a little bit of white, a lot more white. And this is where we added gray. We took the hue, we added a little bit of gray, we added more gray. This is where you do a color study. It's kind of dry and methodical, but you learn a lot. This is the blue, you add a little black, and look at the different colors that you're getting. You know, quite a variety of colors, just out of doing those simple maneuvers of changing the saturation of the hue. Let's see, why do I have this one in here? I don't recognize that one. Well, it's trying to show you the value of the yellows all the way down to the dark colors. And you can take one hue and with tint and shade, get a range of values. So the hue has its own value, but you can change the value with white and black. All right, it starts to get a little confusing when you have all these terms, but when we're sitting there doing it starts getting clear. These are the colors of the tubes that we were working with, and that I suggest, because on the tube, first of all, they're nice, heavy, a lot of saturated pigment in them. It's a good brand, not too expensive. It's not the highest expensive brand, but it's got good pigment in it. And it's got good color range so that you can get a warm and a cool blue. For example, this is a cobalt blue, which is considered more in the middle range of the blues. And this is a cerulean blue, which is considered a warm blue. So each hue has a warm hue of it and a cool hue of it, or more than one in the paint store. So when you're buying it, sometimes it's a little confusing. So, yeah.
Excuse me, on the two blues, the cerulean, and then what was that dark
Cobalt.
Then what would be the darker or the darkest?
Well, not
range?
dark, it's going to be warm and cool.
Oh, what is?
This is kind of neutral. This is a warm, and a cool one would be ultramarine.
Oh, it would be white.
And this is, let's see, cadmium yellow medium. And we kind of chose that for like a mid-range yellow. And when we add yellow azo, it's more towards a warm yellow. And if you did lemon yellow, it's towards a cool yellow. This was the red we were using, cadmium medium. That's kind of a mid-range red. A cool red would be alizarin crimson. A warm red would be naphthol, or cadmium light, cadmium red light. And this is the alizarin, so you can see it's on the cooler side. So part of it is getting paint so that you can mix things. And this is what we worked with. This month we're going to be much freer and more flexible with what we work with. We just want to know that they're warm or they're cool. See, here's an example of warm and cool red. This is a cool red. It happens to be darker, but it's just cooler. Cooler means it has blue in it. You can see it tends toward blue. This is warmer, it tends towards yellow. And this is kind of the middle red, which is, a lot of times people would say, well, they're all red. And they're all red hue. But as we get into being an artist, we start to distinguish be more clear what we're talking about. It's a warm red, cool red. And then this was just a setup of how to explore it. Here's a cool red. That's probably a warm red and a medium red. And then white, and then a little bit of black to make gray, a little bit more to make a middle gray, and then black. So that's kind of the number of steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 3 different colors of red. And when you mix them, you come up with something like this. So here's your black and white up here, where light gray, dark gray, and black. And I hadn't filled in that side. I added quite a bit of gray to that, so I lost the color. But, you know, if you didn't add so much, you'd still have color. Wow. But that's what a color study is. And you can see how different these hues are when you add the white and the gray. Now, this is how you use it in art. You know, we're looking at value, see the light, the tints, and the shades. This is one color, one hue, so it's monochromatic. This is all old hat, but just kind of refreshing. And we did that. We did some of this to play.
I
Yeah.
see other hues in there.
Well, there's a little tiny green, isn't there? A little tiny green there. That's her little pop. And that's a little pink. Is that what you mean, Suzanne?
Yeah, and some blue. But so you would still call that monochromatic?
I say this is monochromatic because it's 99%. And these are little tiny accents to give it a little pizzazz.
Okay.
If it were strictly, you know, she could have left those out if she was doing straight monochromatic.
Because I was sort of wondering about that myself, like how do you define it, and you know, what are the edges or the parameters of monochromatic? So I guess you just explained that.
Yeah, it's where, you know, basically you're seeing the same color overall, and then a little bit of hints here and there of other color.
Okay.
And basically the pink is just pushed with a little bit more red accent to it. And this blue is the purple pushed with a little blue. The yellow is the only one that's really the zingers, you know?
Yeah, and the green, I guess, right?
Oh, yeah, it's a yellow green. I call that yellow, but yeah, they're both kind of sour yellow.
Well, there's some real dark green on the bottom right.
Oh, right here, right there. Yeah. Boy, that's nice and subtle.
Yeah, very. I didn't even see it.
And interesting, Suzanne, what do you know about the colors of these two yellowies? They're complements, right?
Yeah, purple and yellow.
Mm-hmm. So that's probably why they were chosen, because complements have the most energy exchange.
And it's also sort of a reddish purple, so that sort of balances the green.
Yeah, right. And that's just taking the purple and adding a little bit of more red, so it's a redder purple.
Mm-hmm.
Now here's also a monochromatic square, just playing around the squares, so you can kind of see how what I like to see about this is how space gets warped. You know, the darks recede and the lights come forward, and when you go past this, they look like there's transparency. There's a lot of play in just this one color. Now it also has a warm blue, and it's got more of a neutral blue, and I don't know, I think that's mostly warm and neutral blues in there. Because you can see this leans towards yellow. You can see an overtone of yellow a little bit. And that's, of course, you can kind of, it's fun to look and say, well, how'd they make that? Well, that's probably gray, but with more white. It has white and black. This has more black. So part of it is learning how to look and see what color is made of. And here's a piece of art where they took all the primaries the red, blue, and yellow. And they're pretty saturated. This red is saturated, this blue is saturated, the yellow is saturated, and made a composition out of it. And to tone it down, they did the values. And the green, of course, is a mixture of the yellow and blue. But that's pretty a strong composition, pretty bright, not very subtle. Now here is a good example of complementaries. For the most part, the strong things in this composition, Suzanne, are complementaries, not everything. But you know, the green, that yellow lemony green, when you add black to it, goes chartreuse, right? And then you add a little white to get the tint. So it's kind of part of it.
Mhm.
And, but basically he's playing with the purple and the yellow. And then black, I mean, and the tints. I don't see a lot of shades, but mostly tints. But it can make a very strong composition out of not very many colors. Whoops, that's kind of small. Sorry about that. See if we can make it bigger. No. Oh, wait. Gets blurry. But that is analogous. And analogous colors are colors next to each other on the color wheel. 3 neighbors. And these are blue and green and blue-green. Again, with white and black. To make a whole composition, beautiful composition out of just simple analogous colors. So I guess that's it for the slideshow. Just a review. Any questions? Oh, I guess there was one more, but it didn't show up. Let's see if I can get it. Oh, this was the achromatic colors. Achromatic is basically blacks and whites. However, there are some chromatic grays in here, which is very faint hue in white and black. Down here is a little yellow hint. Again, simple but powerful compositions. And we'll get more into that after this week. And if you guys need, we're not going to do a color study. We're going to do some exercises around it. And then we'll do a composition. Okay? So if you guys are ready, we'll go to our workstations and get set up. And that means, well, first we're going to do a warm-up in our books, in our workbook, if everybody has a workbook. And then we're going to start with our color study. Okay? The warm-up today, as you get into your book, is going to be writing about color and your observation, anything that you feel like writing about, anything, good, bad, you know, emotions or fear or excitement or hatred or whatever you feel about color, or a color that you saw that you really have in your mind's eye, anything, just free-form writing for a whole page in your workbook. So when you feel like you've exhausted your thoughts here, what I'd like you to do is to pick up 2 colors of your choice that are complements. The supply table is over there. And say if you decided you want to do yellow and blue, you can choose any yellow and any blue. We're not going to do what we did last month. This is going to be a broader exploration. So you could have a, you could even do yellow ochre, you know, as a yellow, if you wanted to do a yellow. And the complement of the opposite is a blue, and you could choose even a phthalo blue, because they're still one's complement. So help yourself, and then also get some black and white. So Suzanne, when you're getting your colors, make it a broad choice, you know, for complements. So if you wanted to do, say, orange and blue-green, you could do teal. You could do, you know, to pick tubes that you like. Red orange, it could be a red orange and a teal or something like that. And you'll start from there and then pick black and white. So we'll gather complements. Help yourself. And some of the, I love the color wheel between people's bits. So on the color wheel, if you choose an opposite that has the secondary color as part of it. For example, if you chose red-orange, there may not be a red-orange in a tube that you have, so you can have to mix that. And the opposite of that is blue-green. So you might have to mix some colors to make once you've got your colors, I want you to, in your workbook, put one of them down as your saturated color. That means right out of the tube. So just put it down on the page, and if I've chosen this green, which is a phthalo green, just put some of it down on the page. So you have it. Because what we're going to do is we're going to actually, you know, just put it down on the page. Now we're going to try to find what opposite color, and since I'm doing red and green, what opposite color really harmonizes with that. Opposites are jarring generally, they have a lot of energy towards each other. And so the task is to make them friendly, make them feel like they're whole beings. So to do that, you're going to have to maybe add white or gray or black. In some way, you're going to have to manipulate the other one to make them be compatible. So that's what, and what it's doing for you is to think about how you do that color and what would really, and be kind of sensitive about what would really be a mate for it. So you're looking for a mate for this color that you put down. And you're using your opposites, but you're also using black and white. So you're going to be mixing something that's, and you can mix several different ones to see what's going to come out right. You know, you don't know which one's going to be, so it's trial and error. gave you the tray with the paper. This keeps the paint moist. And then I gave you palette paper to do your mixing on. And if you have a palette knife, and that works the best, or if you have a little rubber spatula, sometimes that works, or you can mix with a brush. However you like to mix. And then just play around and see what colors you can come up with that might look good with the one that you put on your paper. And it can be more than one, maybe. One of the things that when you're creating with color and you're working in your painting, you always want to kind of think not so much about what color do I want, but what value do I want next to that. And then you go from there, because then you want, well, I want a value and I want something that contrasts. So you start kind of defining the color that you want to go next to it. So sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but it's trial and error. And sometimes you chose colors that just really don't resonate with each other when you chose any green and any red or any yellow and any blue. So you might have to go back to the table and choose something else. Because you're looking to get a handsome and exciting relationship compatible with opposites. And if you really can't make something that you like, another trick is to add a little bit of the complement to the other, and that will instantly harmonize them, but just a tad. And then they'll seem to be more friendly with each other. Yeah, they're screaming at him. found two that you really like together, then make a little square on your book. Make a square on your book and do a little composition. Just make a little square.
Okay.
And the composition will be how much of the saturated one and how much of the one that you chose to go with it.
So I'm just picking one other.
Yeah, and make a balance.
And is there sort of a, like, would I do a stronger value and a lesser value? Or,
Well, when you have two complements, if they're both intense, they're jarring.
right,
So that's why we were working how to get harmony. I have not jar so much, but have like their partners. So any one of these kind of makes them look more friendly to each other.
yeah,
And this one less so, because the hue is still pretty concentrated.
right,
But I say this one really has a nice, and it's also value difference.
right, makes more interesting.
Yeah, makes it more interesting. So, but now they have different weights. They're heavier, and then it's lighter. So now you need to balance in terms of weight. So you balance them in terms of hue. Now we're taking that one step further.
And then, would you put the stronger color in less weight for sure? Right?
Yeah, the darker has more weight, so you need a lot less. Okay. And the more concentrated it is, it comes to, you know, like even the dark one, it will be less because it's darker than that.
Right.
So they chose those two because they also have, there's not much contrast. I kind of like that. I think that's really pretty. Okay, working on it? Oh, yeah, okay, you got it. Now, those are interesting because those are about the same value. If you went this way, then you have weight issue. Oh, that's what you're talking about. Yeah. This, it, you know, it has equal weight, so you, when you made a composition, they could be equal amounts. This, they wouldn't have equal. So you could do two little squares, one with those and one with those, and see what you, how much weight you need. How are you doing, Suzanne? Is it making sense? Suzanne, on is it making sense?
Yeah, sorry, I had my microphone turned off.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm doing good.
Okay, let me know if you need anything.
Okay.
Okay,
So I have a question.
yeah. Yes. Oh, there you go.
So that's more what you're.
So you've got the blue, and it's good if you put this color next to it.
That on the side, yeah,
Yeah, because
because
they're really comparing over there.
yeah, this seems to,
And then put that one next to it, because you're comparing.
okay.
And then you can see how they work together, or not, if they harmonize. Now, when you get it that brown, you're starting to lose.
Yeah, just wanted to see how dark.
You know what? Orange, you put more orange in it, still be dark. You know what I mean?
I know, but it only takes a little bit of black.
Yeah, I want to go with them. You put around how much we get that hue down. You kind of lost the hue. So part of what we're finding out is how important the colors that we choose to start with, and not that there's anything wrong with any of the choices that we make, but they get different results. So it becomes kind of a skill to start looking at color and saying, well, I probably will get good results if I choose these two colors together. And And it's also, we're working on refining our discernment here. You know, we want to keep tuning into color as much as we can. Keep tuning into the feeling and the relationship of the color. So all the while that you're doing this exercise, you kind of keep reminding yourself, I'm noticing that bloppity blop. I'm noticing that this. Keep noticing. You know, I notice if I add a little more white, it does this. Or I notice that if I put a big area of this, it's heavy. Or it's all about continuing to notice. And the more we do it just in our studio stuff, the more obvious and the more quickly we do it when we're painting. After a while, it becomes second nature, you know, like, oh, I know what this is going to do. I need this.
I'll call you when that happens.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about how to make that happen, actually, because I agree. It's like, I'll tell you when it's going to when it happens.
4,000 hours.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the best way. But we're going to do it also for the month. We're going to limit ourselves so that we work with just a narrow range for ourselves so that we get a lot of practice with that narrow range. And that's what really enlightens us, you know, is that practice with a narrow range. So once you have your colors, then you do a little composition for weight balance. And you can do more than one. Like I noticed some people had a dark and a light, and some people had two that were similar values that looked good together, that gave a harmony. So they could do two little compositions. Oh, there we go. I'll show you an example. Here's an example of the two little compositions, looking to see how much would balance. And so you can start to see that, you know, a lot of light, a little bit dark. There you go, a lot of light, just a little bit of dark. And then if they're closer in value, more equal. And that shows. Suzanne, here's somebody's example where trying to get that balance of light to dark, or the balance of the two colors for weight. And so she's tried different hues of the same two complements.
Okay.
It looks like you're going to do a third, huh?
I am.
You get on a roll, and then it's kind of fun. Oh, I want to see what this does. Oh, I want to see what this does. And that's the best of all worlds, when you get curious and want to know more. Because then it's sinking in, you know, something's going to stay with you. If you really get excited about this, you can make a composition, just a free-form composition on the two complements here. You know, a small one in your workbook. Lastly, I'll point out about these colors that when you put it on thick, they have one weight, and then when you put it on thin, it has a different weight. So that's something to consider too, is how thick are you putting it on, or how thin do you want to put it on? Right, so you know what I see, that this is very interesting. When you put them this way, I start seeing that this actually feels darker, doesn't it? Makes me want to get my little.
I put a little black in that.
Uh-huh.
Oh, it's so strong.
And then this is so much lighter. You don't even know how bigger. Offset that. You know, weight-wise. Because when you say per weight, yes, these don't feel equal. They don't feel balanced. These feel more balanced.
Okay. So you're saying to lighten it to make this bigger?
Yeah, not to lighten it, but just to make it more of a, you know, it's like scales, putting on a balance scale. You need more of this to offset the heaviness of that. It's pretty color combination. It's both of them.
That had a scale. Surprising. Oh dear. Oh dear.
Yeah, but more of this, man. I think that's the easiest way. Which is true. Well, great, you got it. Just, and it's nice going lighter and seeing even around, so you got darker. And medium and light. Yes, these are more equal, right?
Yeah, I thought
They were. Perfect. Yeah, well, the light gives contrast, but it doesn't darken like the complements do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although there's something moody about this, don't you think? When they start getting dark and kind of similar, they
Yeah.
have a mood. Maybe it's not a mood. Okay, you got it. Okay, it sounds like we're all getting it. And I know you're a little lagging behind because of your, but you're doing right. You got it.
So I'm supposed to stay with that, or I can go lighter in that.
Well, I was staying with this and staying lighter to see how, you know, balanced you have to get.
Okay. So that was balanced to me. So,
Okay.
so do you see, is that true?
It looks a little, but it looks close. It looks close.
Okay, so what would make it, what would?
Well, I would say they're pretty similar in value.
Okay.
So that means weight.
Okay.
So the blue could actually have a little bit more space,
Okay.
but not much because of the intensity.
Intensity of the blue.
Yeah.
I mean,
So on this one, there's if you went to a lighter orange, then you would need a lot more in this than that.
this would need to be much smaller.
Or it would just maybe the rest would be enough.
Let's try it.
But you're right, you picked up that there's the intensity that you're balancing as well as the value. Okay, sounds good. And we were really only doing one of the color changes. You know, we were keeping one constant. So you can imagine in a painting when you're working and you have two colors that you're working with and you're changing both of them with value, it gets complex pretty quickly. So the more you understand this principle, the more you can see in your painting what to do. You'll just say, oh, so whenever I look at a painting, the first thing I ask is, where does it need to be lighter? Where does it need to be darker? So values start speaking first to me. And then I say, well, does it need to be intense hue or a muted hue or a toned hue? So those are the questions you start asking yourself when you're painting. And that will make your paintings more clear, you know, in terms of what you're trying to say. Okay, so I'm just going to check on. how we're doing. Yes, yes, go ahead.
So when you start a painting, do you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to make a blue painting or I'm going to make a green painting?
I do start with, well, I start with, I want to make a light or a dark. And then I start with the hue after I decide, is it going to be light or dark?
So if you decide light, you choose a light hue, and if you decide dark, you choose a dark hue?
No, it just means how much white maybe I would put in a dark hue.
Okay.
But I first choose the mood. So is the mood going to be light, uplifting, or is it going to be earthy, grounded? You know, I look at dark as more grounded, and maybe they could be heavy, you know, more ponderous thinking, or they could be sad. You know, I don't really go necessarily for a sad one, but moody. Could be, you know, like film noir, you know, kind of moody. So I think that's the direction I choose first, is the mood. How do other people do it? How do you do it, Suzanne?
Yeah, I guess I usually find myself gravitating towards light. And I'm thinking that to push myself, I should try to work more dark, but I'm never satisfied with that. So I always end up going back towards the light. So I don't know. I don't know if I should just sort of play there in that place that feels right to me, or if I should try to push those edges more.
I say play where it feels right and get really good at that.
Okay.
Because when we get really good at it, then we may say, well, what if I do this, you know?
Yeah.
And it takes you off in another direction. What does anybody else start dark or light or color, or you start with color first? And do you start with intensity, or do you start with saturation? You know, what value of saturation you're going to use?
Probably intensity, yeah.
And do you usually start intense first?
Usually.
That bold, direct. Yeah. And so then you get to respond to that, right? But it's good just to be aware of that. And then if I've created a bold or intense thing, then I go, oh my gosh, now I have to, you know, respond to that. And some are easier to respond to than others. You make it easier on yourself if it's a little lighter to respond to.
That really makes sense to me, because if I come out with the intensity, sometimes like, well, that's it. And I don't know where to go.
Okay, well, we'll learn some techniques on how to play with that. But there's some fun techniques on what to do when you do have something that's really kind of bold, and then you feel stuck.
So I don't know how to.
Yeah.
I don't know how to deepen or enrich.
Right.
Because it feels like it's so intense already.
Yeah.
So how do I make it? How do I expand it? How do I make it deeper? How do I make
Great.
it richer? How do I
Keep that in mind, because that will be probably next week. Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to. Tuning it down makes all the difference in the world. Oh, this grade, you lost the color.
That's
Your achromatic. Something's happening with achromatic. It's really achromatic. So you want some of the colors in there. All right. part of it is you want to keep your water clean, you know, as clean as you can anyway, to keep the purity.
Yeah. Look at this tree. Look at that tiny, tiny thing. It's almost green. That.
Well, remember yellow and black and green? They make chartreusey. But it's actually kind of confusing. See what it is? But that, when you get to that, you're starting to lose the fact that there's yellow in it. So you want
Yeah,
a little bit more.
with that. It's a little bit.
And that will just be the warm up. Yeah, that's your one.
So going around, I'll just show you
Huh?
big one, and then you're trying to mix white and white with it, the red.
This one, right?
Something about gray. This is the red without anything, but this is the black. And I add a little bit of green to it, and that's what it seems to be. So,
And I would do this. So you have my
Are you guys?
oh,
Wow.
It's just hardly a blue. That's red.
I was just going. Opposite.
It was a blend. It was black and green, red, and white. Yeah, white. Probably. But what you're looking for is how do these two, what is more yellow up in this way? Yeah, and this is pretty close to it, isn't it? Maybe adding a little more red to it. That's what I want. Okay, so what your compliments are yellow and blue. Now, yellow and blue aren't compliments.
Oh, yeah,
It's yellow and purple.
the notation on colors are personal.
Yes. Yep, it's your just diary. It's taken after Julia Cameron's 3 pages where you just write. You don't think, you just write, and you write about your feelings or anything that comes up about color
Well,
for
I
you.
don't know. I was gonna, yeah, initially I thought the light pink, and then when I went darker, the values kind of got too similar.
This is too similar, yeah.
Because I thought, well, maybe I'll go really dark, but
It's not a place for checking that out
to this one.
to one very light, you know, light,
More grayish, like this one.
yeah, like that. See how that looks. Oh, that's pretty.
Kind of like that.
They all are pretty colors and they harmonize. These, like you say, are the same values. So if you're looking for contrast, that's one thing, but if you're looking for harmony, it may be. You know.
Yeah, since we're adding a little green, like you suggested. Green.
If you find the balance that you like, between the two complements, say you found green, olive green, you found the pale red, and you really liked it. Now, the second step is on another sheet of paper in your workbook. The next step is to create a little window and make a balanced, how much of the green would balance how much of that red that you made up that you like. So you're doing weight. So first you're doing the hue, and then you're going to do balance, like weight. Okay? So when you're working in your art, you're looking at value and hue, and then you're looking at how much of the hue of each for harmony and balance. Oh, okay, you did not compliments. Okay. So what's a complement to which one? The blue? Okay, the blue is not red. The blue is going to be orange.
But this one, this is an orange one.
No, I think that's
Okay,
so it's going to be brown. Yeah, that was pushing a little too far. Now, interesting, these, if it went with this one, those are both the same value, right? Pretty much. So if you wanted it to have a different value, you might want to, yeah. So I would play around with different things that go and different values. And keeping the people in that, because these are without Achromatic Colors. Even though they're using the mixture, they not achromatic. So you're on a new
venture.
Yeah. Right, so now you're gonna say which two are you gonna use and see what balance. How much of one balances how much of the other, weight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna start out with my green, but obviously I need a bigger patch, and I'm gonna go with this one.
Okay,
I'm gonna need a bigger patch of that.
right. Because this is
That
heavy.
way, because I'm heavy now.
So then you're gonna find out how much you need.
Okay.
Okay, and you can do a couple little squares to try it out. You know?
Yeah, okay.
So speaking on party, did it go achromatic because I need it neutral?
Yeah, it went achromatic because the hue
Because I need
became so
neutralized.
unsaturated that it was white and black that made it so little of hue. We don't call it, it's called a chromatic gray, but you can barely see the red there. So that's why I said achromatic, but you can't see the hue, it's more achromatic. If you see the hue in it, it's chromatic gray. That might go really nice with that. Let me put that next to it. Because that has a nice harmony, doesn't it? Where they're not fighting each other.
This one's so yellow.
And that's muted.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, this one is so yellow and so saturated, and this is so saturated that they just both have so much energy.